working on the off-road mower again for Jeremiah, and what I've done here is welded 3-inch plate all the way around the whole frame. In the back part, I think I put it on the inside of the frame, but everywhere else I welded it on the outside just to stiffen everything up, because that's pretty thin metal. I think the stuff that I welded on was 1/8 of an inch thick, which was about the same thickness of the original steel, so we're like 1/4 inch thick, so it just kind of stiffens it up now all the way around. So that was pretty straightforward. You just fit it and use a wire welder, go all the way around it just to stiffen it up. You don't have to do that, but I just thought it would be a good idea. I've got this piece of rectangle tube steel welded in where the old beam was. It's welded solid, there's no pivot. I welded a small piece of channel on to bring the spindle down, and these are go-kart spindles, and 6 degrees positive caster. That's the bolt tipped back 6 degrees that the spindle pivots on. You can think of that as ball joints or kingpins or whatever. The top one back is positive camber. So this is one side. The other side I just welded this on. Not too bad. That's a real good weld for me. I got this new welder, so this is what I got. It's a dual voltage welder, so I can run it. It's pretty versatile, and it's just a Tractor Supply welder, Hobart. I like Hobart because they support the four-wheeling industry. So right now I have a argon CO2 tank hooked up. I can run it gasless with flex wire, with gas, on 110 or on 220. So it's pretty versatile. That's why I wanted it. I need to get the spindle bracket welded on, and I need to make sure I'm going to use a degree finder and make sure I get it right at the 6 degree caster, and it should be good to go. Okay, so I got this back at a much better, like 6 degree camber angle. You can see has a little tweak right there, and I got the hole filled in. Just put a little piece of filler metal in there, notched out both sides, bent it where I wanted it, filled it in. Now is to run this leftover piece of channel, cut it in half, try to put it at 45s, wherever that puts it once I get it cut, and weld it in for reinforcement, and that should really stiffen up the front end. Okay, that's all I got time for today. I'll get a piece of metal and fill that in, and that's the reinforcement. So that's what it looks like right there. Should be 6 degrees camber, reinforced. Still got to do the other side. We're in the process right now of beefing up the steering on this mower. The main thing I've done with this is I've made some metal parts to replace the plastic parts. So here's kind of how it works roughly. It is taken apart right now and it's pretty loose. We'll kind of see the basic design is when you turn the steering wheel is hooked on the end of this. Those gears on the end of the steering wheel rod mesh up with these gears here. And as you turn it, it moves that forward and backward. You know, you still want it to work like that, but I'm just going to show you what I changed out. This piece that bolts on the end of the steering shaft here, your steering wheel hooks on this end. This is all plastic here. And there's a bolt down there that holds this together. And then this slides on here to hold it up against your other gear. So forget about this. We're not going to use this. I've made a metal one to replace this flimsy piece of junk. So here's how I made it. I just have to weld it together now. So this piece is the right size to slip on here. And what I've done is I've drilled it out bigger just big enough for the washer from this bolt to fit down in, so it can be countersunk down in, out of the way. So this will go on here, and then this just needs to be fit and welded on here. And then once that's done, you'll still be able to put the bolt in. The washer will be permanently in there, but you'll be able to put the bolt in and out when you need to take it apart. So that's what I need to do first. I also made a copy of this plastic spacer and just made the same thing out of steel. And then however we need to adjust the steering, we can get some washers to go in here to move the gears however we need to move them on this shaft to make things work right. So that's the plan for that. I'm going to go ahead and weld it now. Drilled a 1/2-inch hole through this tubular steel, rectangle steel. I need to shim this a little better. It's a little bit loose. But anyway, here's the steering arm down here. That moves forward and backwards when you turn the steering wheel. So we're going to hook a tie rod from there to here. That will move this plate like this as you turn the wheel. So we are going to hook these tie rod ends onto here. Cut these arms off and weld some new ones on. We're going to use a string to the center of the axle to get the correct Ackerman for steering, and then we're going to bolt those on. Yeah, I've got the steering mounted in the middle here. The tie rods are going to hook on here. I have cut the spindle where the tie rods are going to connect, and I want to elevate them up a little bit for more clearance, and I also need to set the Ackerman, and that is what the boards are. I'm trying to hold it at 0 toe, and there's nothing to hold the wheels steady, so I got the ratchet straps in the boards for that. So I'm pretty close to 0 toe the way it sets now. So I'm going to go ahead and get my string set up to get the correct Ackerman angle here. I'm not going to go into that too much. There's lots of other videos about Ackerman. Look up Ackerman steering setup in Google or wherever, and there'll be lots of videos on that. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here in a second. Okay, here's the Ackerman steering setup. Got the string run back to the center point of the rear axle, and that gives me the right angle that I need on my steering arms. So I'm just going to weld some 1-inch by 1/4 inch steel onto there. So here's where we're at. I got my arms tacked on. Looks like it's a little bit off, but when you put it over to the center of the bolt, it looks pretty good. Same with the other side. So I'm just going to pull the spindles out and then weld it really good. Put them back in. Drill some holes. This looks a little bit different than a little while earlier. I did have this piece mounted here, but it always pays to plan things out a little better first. I just kind of winged it. A lot of times I can get away with that, but not on this one. I had the knuckles the other way with the arms trailing the spindles and the tie rod going across. One problem. I was test fitting it all together, turned the steering wheel, and when you turn the wheel right, the front wheels turned left. So everything looked really cool, looked really good, but it was backwards. So I had to change my pivot point. Now it should work. But the biggest problem is now my tie rod is going to be too short here. So I'm going to have to make a new end up for it, because I wasn't going to buy another one. So we'll see. I just bought a bolt and some steel, and hopefully I'll make it work. Okay, the steering is basically done. I got my tie rods out a lot further now. If I kick those out just a little bit, maybe an inch or a half inch either way, that'll let me have more of my threads into my tie rod sleeves, which will make it a lot stronger. Here is my extension I made. This is just 3/4 inch tubing that I had for my son's four-wheeler brush guard for his little tiny four-wheeler. I welded a bolt into this end so it can thread into the existing tie rod sleeve. It's not tight yet. I didn't tighten anything down. And then on this side I welded a nut in. I can just use my tie rod end here, and it effectively lengthened the tie rod. And then you can still adjust length with it by turning it here, and then you still have the heim joint on the end so it can still move as needed. The reason why I didn't just weld this right onto here was because this is aluminum, this is steel, so couldn't do that. So this was the next best option, other than buying a whole longer tie rod, which I wasn't going to do. Okay, I got the steering pretty much done. I welded a piece on and pushed the tie rods apart a little bit. The length is a lot better now. I've got the, I don't know what you call that one. I've got that tie rod going to the steering box, lengthened. Everything is good. I just got to get some longer bolts, and I'm going to have to do some alignment on it, but it looks pretty good. Also got to do some clearancing on that knuckle. It doesn't want to turn as far this way, it's hitting, so I'll do some clearancing there. Turns fine to the left though, so it should be, that side should be good. I'll set her down on the ground and show you how it works. See, it turns much further to the left than the right, but other than that, everything is good. I like it. Probably gonna mount the motor in, figure out the pulleys next, and the clutch system. I'm also gonna mount the back body panel and the running boards, probably because I'm gonna have to have that set for where I'm gonna run the clutch through, where it's gonna pivot at and stuff. So those are the next projects, but that's all for this part of this project. Might be a little while before I get back to it, because my next project is we're going to pull the engine out of this and give it a quick rebuild, maybe do some porting and polishing on the heads. Might do a video on that maybe.